Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where I get to say maybe the technology industry is finally coming to its senses. Probably not, let's be honest. But maybe it will. So one of the big problems we've seen over the past decade and a half is basically all of these technology companies trying to own the entire stack. So back with the robber barons and the Gilded Age 150 years ago, the idea was to own the entire vertical for producing something, right? So if you're going to be Henry Ford and you're going to be producing cars, you also wanted to have a steel mill to provide the steel for your cars. And you also wanted a mine so you could get the iron from the mine to go into the steel to then go into your cars. You wanted rubber plantations and the whole nine yards. The idea there is that if you owned the entire supply chain, you could milk money out of every layer of that supply chain to become more and more profitable. The interesting thing is in the technology world and how things have developed over the past quarter of century, most of the most successful companies have actually decided not to do that. If you look at the computer race, the personal computer race back in the day between Apple and IBM, Apple decided they wanted to manufacture and produce everything, and basically they were and also barely had percentage points of the PC market, where IBM decided to basically open up their architecture so anybody could design hardware and that type of thing. And that's when the PC, the IBM-based PCs, they took over the market, and Apple, existed. If you look at this with the internet world, right? Google went out there before they lost their mind. They're currently in the process of losing their mind. But anyways, right? One of the things that made Google very valuable is they created the search engine, but then they created all of these tools to make it easier for other people to profit, right? So you could have analytics on your website to better understand how users use your website, and Google could better understand how users use your website. You could do AdWords or AdSense. You could put ads on your website that was being provided by Google, so you could make money there, right? Back 20 years ago, that was a cool thing with Google, is Google didn't just simply profit off of the internet. They allowed you to profit off the internet too. You think about this with the smartphones, whether it's Apple iOS or Android. Basically, they created this environment so people could create apps. Now there are, very valuable apps out there, companies that create very valuable apps, and that is one thing that has allowed both Android and iOS to thrive. The issue is a while ago, basically companies started trying to go back to the 100-year-old mindset of what if they owned the entire stack? And they just started trying to, again, own everything. The problem you run into in the real business world is something called synergy, right? Resources requirements, mentality, company culture is different for different services that are provided, right? If you're going to be cleaning and maintaining cars, right? Basically washing cars, detailing cars, or whatever else. There's resources that are required for that, a mentality that's required for that, a company culture that's required for that. That is entirely 100% different than a Silicon Valley tech bro culture, right? Not necessarily that one is good or one is bad, they're just different. A mechanic, right? When you go and you deal with mechanics, there are different resources and requirements and workflows and culture for mechanics. And so one of the problems you run into is when these large companies try to own the entire stack in the modern world, if they don't do it well, you just kind of get this mess. That's one of the things we saw before with Uber. So Uber was very proud. They were very loud and they were very proud a while ago, talking about how they were going to get rid of all of their drivers. They wanted their drivers to know just how damn worthless Uber thought their drivers were. And so they had their own autonomous vehicle division, and they were trying to build their own autonomous car. So the idea is they would have the platform, but then they would also own the cars, but then they'd also require the maintenance for the cars and a whole bunch of this stuff. And I've complained about it. I said that was stupid 7 years ago. I used to roar 7 years ago. I used to scream how stupid this was. Because the issue is right now, or how it was with Uber, basically they don't own the cars, right? There's all of these assets that are not on Uber's books. When you decide to go drive for Uber and you take your $30,000 Honda Civic to go drive for Uber, that $30,000 Honda Civic doesn't go onto Uber's books. They don't have to pay, they don't have to put $30,000 down to buy the Honda Civic. They don't have to come up with financing for the Honda Civic, right? Because it's not their asset. Why do they want the liability for the asset that's bringing them value? No, that's not the modern world, right? And so the issue they get into is with like these car sharing companies or whatever, ride sharing companies, is when they try to get into the autonomous world, it's an entirely different business model, and it takes a lot more to scale, right? You know, it's one of the things we talk about with exponential growth, exponential scaling in the tech world, right? You know, one server requires one administrator, 100 servers requires 2 administrators, 1,000 servers requires 3 administrators, right? That's what we call scaling exponentially, right? Whereas most businesses scale linearly, right? If you're going to make more hamburgers, right? One person can make 50 hamburgers per hour. So if you're going to sell 200 hamburgers per hour, then you need 2 people, 150, right? So on and so forth. And so one of the issues you run into is if all of a sudden Uber goes from this tech company that's scaling exponentially to a company where they actually have to own all of their cars. They actually have to buy those things. That then becomes a massive cost to the company. And then they have to figure out how to maintain the cars. What happens when somebody vomits, right? If somebody vomits in an Uber normally, right, the driver deals with it. That is not Uber's responsibility. That's the driver's responsibility. If Uber owns the vehicle, all of a sudden it's Uber's responsibility. And then you've got to deal with the types of employees that would clean up vomit. You do not expect progressive California tech employees to deal with the types of people that would clean up other people's vomit now, do you? Hell no. So anyways, big issue. And one of the things I've screamed out for a while. This is where I wonder with what exactly is going to go on with Tesla's cybercab service, right? Because they have the Robotaxi thing. They have the thing where supposedly you can rent out your car as a cyber taxi. We'll see where that goes. But then they have their own cyber taxi fleet, supposedly, that they're going to be creating. So they're going to have to build all those cyber taxis, and they're going to have to maintain those cyber taxis. I really don't understand what the business model is. You may have heard me say this before. I don't really understand what the hell Elon Musk is doing. But anyways, we'll put that to the side. What I think is interesting with all the stuff that I've been talking about is Waymo and Uber are partnering together. So you have Uber, that is the ride-share tech platform, and then you have the Waymo, which is the hardware maintenance and all of that kind of, and they come together to provide a service for the users, right? So the cool part about this is Waymo, right? The company of Waymo can use different apps to rent out their vehicles. So they actually have like a Waymo One app. So they have their own app. So you can use Waymo One in order to rent out a Waymo vehicle. Or they can use Uber in the future, or they can use Lyft. Right? So maybe Uber and Lyft want to negotiate different things. The cool thing here is, since Waymo is its own company, it can set up relationships as it sees fit. Uber, on the other hand, is also its own company, right? Basically doing the logistics, connecting riders to vehicles. And so if there are not enough not enough Waymo vehicles in an area, maybe they could partner with cyber cabs, or they could partner with some other person that's providing the different vehicle services. And I actually think this is starting to be a good thing, where we're starting to see these companies disentangle themselves from trying to provide everything. And I think it will be better for everybody. You know, you think about that with back in the day when I had my computer repair company, right? We sold a hell of a lot of PCs and we sold almost no Macs. The reason is because if I sold an Apple product, it was 100% liability on me. So if I go out and I buy the product for the customer or whatever, I might be able to charge them an hourly rate, maybe $100 for buying it. But if there was a problem, RMA, dead on arrival, something like that. And then it becomes this tedious, horrible, nasty pain in the ass, right? Where PCs, on the other hand, to assemble a PC, back in the day, it was $200. $200. You slap some cards into a PC, you install an operating system, an antivirus, that was $200 cash. That was beautiful. Oh, you want to do a migration? Take your data from this computer to the brand new computer? Well, that's got to be another $150 for you. $350 for not bad work. Oh, you want me to take this to your house and set everything up? Holy shit. That one computer might be $500-$600 in profit. Why did I sell a shit ton of PCs? Because PCs made me a shit ton of money. Why did I not sell very many Apple computers? Because Apples were just a complete and utter pain in the ass. It was like, do I want to make a teeny amount of money for a lot of liability? Or do I want to make a lot of money for a teeny amount of liability? And that's one of the things, like I say, with the PC world. And so I think that's going to be the interesting thing. Like with Uber, is this whole thing now. Uber has a vested interest in now promoting Waymo. Waymo now has a vested interest in promoting Uber. As more and more companies get involved in this, they actually have a vested interest in growing the ecosystem so that people get more comfortable with robotaxis, and then they can try to steal market share from the other robotaxi vendors. And I actually think this is a really good way to go, and I'm kind of excited about it. And I'll be curious to see what happens with cybercabs. Cybercabs! Elon Musk leading from behind. Anyways, we'll see what happens with those cybercabs. So this is going to be in Atlanta. Uber and Alphabet's Waymo are now offering robotaxi rides to the public in Atlanta as the companies continue expansion of their partnership. Waymo robotaxis available through the Uber app will cover approximately 65 square miles around Atlanta, but will not yet travel on highways or to the airport. The vehicles feature Waymo's driverless technology, known as the Waymo Driver, integrated into battery electric Jaguar I-Pace SUVs. The company said in September that they would jointly bring Waymo 1 to Austin, Texas, and to Atlanta. Rides became available in Austin in March. They became available in Austin in March. It's now June. And Tesla now has like 10 vehicles on the road. Anyways, launching in the capital before Elon Musk's robotaxi service. In Atlanta and Austin, Waymo rides are only available through Uber's app, while in San Francisco and Los Angeles, passengers book through the Waymo One app. The Waymo Uber partnership only covers passenger rides and not Uber Eats deliveries. So this will kind of be interesting to see where this goes forward as you start to have these individual companies start acting more like vendors to other individual companies, and they start focusing on where the real value proposition is. This might also be interesting for you in the business world. So one of the big problems for a lot of new technology professionals over the past 10 years is, since all these technology companies have tried to own the entire stack, they've shut you out of possibilities. Right? If they own the entire stack, there's no place in there for you to try to get your little 5 or 10% out of profit out of there. What's kind of interesting with this is if this is a shift in mentality, so more of these companies start acting like normal vendors, how we saw business operate for a long time. What might become interesting is that there might be more opportunities for you to be able to launch businesses, launch local robo-taxi businesses, that type of thing, launch local businesses that focus on autonomous vehicles, where you're simply able to buy or lease or whatever from the major companies, you create your thing, and then get profit from the value add that you create there. So this might be an interesting thing going forward. And I would say to look at that as the company that will win at the day. What company is following IBM's example? What company is following Google's example? What company is following Apple's example back in 2007 or whatever, where the idea of what companies out there are creating a system that allow other people to get rich off of it? right? Because that's like one of the things I talk about is in business, client acquisition cost is going to kill you, right? You are going to live or you are going to die, and you're probably going to die based off of client acquisition cost. So the issue is when people create their own stack, nobody has a vested interest in advertise your crap, right? If I advertise your crap, you're going to make more money. And I don't even like you to begin with, right? The thing is if you start separating out those different components, and then individual entrepreneurs are able to get in there, do value adds in order to be able to suck out their little percentage of profit, and now all of a sudden they have a reason to advertise your product. Right? The reason we sold a crap ton of PCs is I made a crap ton of money off of PCs. Again, McAfee, right? So I used to buy McAfee for $5 a license and sell it for $30 a license, right? I made $25 for every license of McAfee that got sold, right? So if McAfee is just trying to sell their product online and they don't help anybody else out, then fine. I mean, that's their right. They can do it, but I'm not going to try to help McAfee out. I was like, oh, look, McAfee's making a lot of money. Great, right? Whereas if McAfee sells for one price, I'm able to do a markup for a different price. Then it gives me a reason to specifically sell that product. And so as we move forward, I'll be interested to see like what kind of opportunities open up in this kind of new model, the new model, the old model of technology. And that's where I would focus on, if you're going to be investing in this world, look at the companies that allow other people to become multimillionaires. What systems are being set up so that other people can become multimillionaires? Those are the ones that are most likely to be successful in the long haul. Would be my thought. So what do you think about Uber and Waymo teaming up in Atlanta and Austin, Texas? What do you think about this with separating out the hardware and the maintenance component from the logistics and the routing component? Do you think this is sexy and exciting the way that I do? Or do you think this is dumb and the only true way to do it is whatever way Elon Musk decides we should all do it? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. Remember, give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down, give us a good comment, give us a horrible comment. It's the modern world of social media. It doesn't matter whether you're happy or mad as long as you leave an interaction. And with that, see y'all later.